a chilling whisper born generations ago, slithered through the ancient stones of the Greywood clan, a prophecy of a name so steeped in misfortune it promised ruin to all who bore it. This was not a legend whispered in hushed tones around crackling fires, but a stark, undeniable truth etched into the very fabric of their existence, casting a long dark shadow over every birth. It spoke of a queen with that cursed name, one who would bring not glory but devastation, tearing the clan asunder. Fear, cold and insidious, wrapped itself around the hearts of the Greywood people, a fear that pulsed beneath the surface of their everyday lives, forever alert to the coming threat. Every child's cry, every new dawn, carried with it the terrifying echo of this foreboding prediction, a constant reminder of the fragile peace they held. The elders, their faces etched with the wisdom and worry of countless seasons, spoke of it with grave solemnity, their voices heavy with the weight of ancient warnings. They believed it with an unwavering conviction, a belief that shaped their laws, their customs, and their collective destiny, making the prophecy a self-fulfilling dread for anyone unfortunate enough to be marked by fate. Into this world burdened by an age-old curse came Alara. She was born not into the powerful, revered main lines of the clan, but into a minor branch, almost insignificant amidst the grand tapestry of Greywood lineage, a fact that perhaps should have offered her a modicum of anonymity. Yet, the cruel twist of destiny's knife ensured her name, Alara, was the very one foretold in the prophecy. From the moment she drew her first breath, a suffocating mantle of suspicion and disdain settled upon her young shoulders, an invisible weight she would carry every waking moment. Her childhood was a silent rebellion, a constant struggle against the prejudice she faced. Daily, a quiet defiance that blossomed in the shadows of her family's unspoken disappointment and the clan's outright avoidance. While others her age practiced hunting drills or social graces, Alara learned to observe, to listen, to understand the subtle cues of disdain and the fleeting moments of kindness that painted her isolated world. She discovered a hidden strength within herself, a resilience forged in the furnace of adversity. She was a ghost in her own home, moving through the periphery, her laughter rarely heard, her thoughts largely unshared. Yet her spirit burned with an intensity that few recognized. This quiet defiance was her shield, her solace and ultimately, her secret weapon, allowing her to hone skills and knowledge that went unnoticed by those who only saw the cursed name. Alara's entire existence was a ceaseless battle against the ingrained superstition of her community, a fight fought not with words, for her words were rarely heeded, but with the quiet dignity of her bearing. Every glance, every hushed conversation, every averted face was a painful reminder of her supposed misfortune. Now an even greater storm brewed on the horizon, threatening to engulf her already precarious life. Whispers, growing louder with each passing day, spoke of the Alpha King's impending choosing ceremony. This was no ordinary event. It was the sacred ritual where the most powerful leader of their lands would select his queen, the woman who would stand beside him, guiding their people into a new era. The air crackled with anticipation, but for Alara, it was a tightening noose, a prophecy renewed, for surely, one bearing the cursed name could never be chosen, never be considered. The thought alone was an affront to tradition, an insult to the spirits, and a perversion of destiny in the eyes of the clan elders. Her heart, though often weighed down by the prophecies, burden harbored a faint, almost imperceptible spark of hope, a rebellious flicker against the darkness. This hope, however fragile, propelled her forward, a silent challenge to the very fabric of her cursed fate. Subscribe now to unravel Alara's destiny, as she challenges the very fabric of her cursed fate. The Alpha King's arrival for the choosing ceremony sent tremors of anticipation, and a cold dread through the entire clan, a palpable wave of emotion that rolled across the Greywood lands. His retinue, an impressive display of strength and discipline, swept into the central encampment, their banners snapping crisply in the autumn wind. The air, already thick with expectation, grew heavy with the scent of pine and the distant rhythmic pounding of ceremonial drums. Every member of the clan, from the oldest elder to the youngest child, felt the shift in atmosphere, an electric charge signifying the gravity of the occasion. For most, it was a moment of hopeful possibility, a chance for their daughters to be seen, to bring honor and influence to their families. For Alara, however, it was a confirmation of her outsider status, a stark reminder of the invisible barrier that separated her from the rest. The traditional selection process began almost immediately, a meticulously orchestrated display steeped in ancient rituals passed down through countless generations. There were tests of physical prowess, demonstrations of intricate knowledge of clan lore, and carefully observed interactions designed to reveal a candidate's grace, wisdom, and leadership potential. The younger women, adorned in their finest attire, moved with a blend of nervous excitement and practiced elegance, each hoping to catch the Alpha King's eye, to prove herself worthy of such an esteemed position. Yet, even as the elaborate ceremony unfolded, Elara found herself deliberately excluded. Her name, a silent curse, rendered her invisible to the process, an unacknowledged presence on the fringes. The Elder Council, their faces stern and deeply lined, dominated the proceedings, their every movement a testament to their unwavering adherence to tradition and their palpable fear of the prophecy. They were the staunch guardians of the Greywood's past, and Elara's presence, even as a mere spectator, was an affront to their deeply held beliefs. So consumed were they by the ancient warnings, by the chilling prophecy that spoke of ruin, that they actively worked to keep Elara from even being considered. Their manipulation of the selection process was subtle yet absolute. Her name was never called for any of the initial assessments, her family was never approached, and any fleeting glance she might have received from a lesser official was quickly redirected by a knowing look from an elder. They whispered amongst themselves, their veiled comments loud enough to be heard by those around, reinforcing the collective prejudice and ensuring that no one dared to champion her cause. Even her distant relatives, fearing association with her cursed name, kept their distance, solidifying her isolation. Despite this deliberate ostracization, Elara continued her quiet acts of kindness, her inherent nature refusing to be dimmed by the pervasive negativity. She would mend a torn fishing net for an elderly hunter, forage for rare herbs to ease a child's fever, or share her meager rations with those even more unfortunate. These were not grand gestures, but small, consistent demonstrations of a compassionate spirit, acts largely unnoticed by the main selection activities, overshadowed by the pomp and circumstance of the choosing. Occasionally, in unguarded moments, she would display an unexpected flash of skill, perhaps disarming a stray, aggressive wolf with nothing but a calm voice and steady hand, or accurately predicting a sudden change in weather patterns that saved a hunting party from peril. These were moments of accidental brilliance, observed only by a handful of individuals who quickly dismissed them as anomalies, refusing to connect them to the girl with the cursed name. Yet, these subtle displays, though largely unacknowledged and certainly not celebrated, very subtly began to challenge the deep-seated negative perception surrounding her. A seed of doubt, however tiny, was inadvertently planted in the minds of a very few, a flicker against the darkness of long-held superstition. It was a faint ripple against a tidal wave of prejudice, almost imperceptible, but present nonetheless. The Alpha King, Torvin, a formidable and respected leader whose very presence commanded deference, demonstrated an unusual and almost unsettling interest in the overlooked and marginalized members of the clan. His keen eyes, the color of twilight skies, seemed to penetrate the superficial layers of outward appearances, sensing a deeper truth beneath the customary displays of strength and beauty. While other potential queens vied for his attention with practiced grace and calculated smiles, Torvin's gaze often drifted, exploring the periphery, observing those who silently served or stood apart. He wasn't swayed by the loudest voices or the most dazzling displays. His discernment ran deeper, searching for an essence, a resonance that others often missed. During a grand feast, a celebration intended to showcase the clan's finest and allow the candidates to interact with him, his penetrating gaze momentarily landed on Elara. It wasn't a prolonged stare, not a lingering, obvious assessment, but a fleeting, almost imperceptible flicker of recognition. She was carrying a platter of roasted meats, moving with the quiet efficiency of someone accustomed to blending into the background, her simple homespun dress a stark contrast to the vibrant silks worn by the other women. For a fraction of a second, their eyes met across the bustling hall, a connection that transcended the noise and the distance. That momentary, almost imperceptible flicker of recognition, that fleeting spark from the Alpha King towards Elara during the public gathering, ignited a flurry of hushed whispers and confusion among those few who witnessed it. It was so brief, so subtle, that many dismissed it as a trick of the light or their own imagination, yet it was enough to unsettle the complacent atmosphere. The elders, ever vigilant, exchanged uneasy glances, their ancient minds struggling to reconcile such an unthinkable possibility. Could the Alpha King, renowned for his wisdom and adherence to tradition, truly perceive something in a girl bearing the cursed name? The other candidates, preening and confident, at first noticed nothing, too engrossed in their own pursuit of his favor. But a few, more perceptive or perhaps more insecure, felt a prickle of unease. Alara herself felt it, a sudden jolt, a warmth spreading through her chest that quickly turned to a cold dread. The weight of his gaze, however brief, felt like a spotlight suddenly cast upon her, exposing her to an even greater level of scrutiny and potential condemnation from her clan. It was a glimmer of hope she had never dared to entertain, a terrifying prospect that simultaneously thrilled and terrified her to her core. Internally, Alara battled a profound and wrenching struggle. On one hand, the Alpha King's fleeting attention, that almost imperceptible moment of connection, stirred a long-dormant desire within her for acceptance, for recognition, for a life beyond the shadows. A part of her, a deeply suppressed part, yearned for the impossible, for a destiny that defied the ancient curse. Could she, the girl whispered to bring ruin, truly be seen differently by someone so powerful, so discerning? The thought alone was intoxicating, a dangerous fantasy that threatened to dismantle the carefully constructed walls around her heart. Yet, powerfully arrayed against this glimmer of hope was the deep-seated, almost genetic belief that her destiny was irrevocably sealed by her cursed name. Generations of ostracization, the constant chill of communal fear, and the elders' unwavering pronouncements had ingrained in her the absolute certainty of her fate. To hope for anything different felt like a betrayal of reality, a foolish indulgence that would only lead to greater pain and disappointment. Every fiber of her being had been conditioned to expect rejection, to anticipate the cold shoulder, to understand that Alara meant misfortune. How could one fleeting glance undo a lifetime of such ingrained conviction? She feared that even acknowledging this nascent hope was an act of profound hubris, an invitation for the prophecy to deliver its full, devastating blow. The conflict waged within her, a silent, agonizing war between a yearning heart and a mind steeped in bitter truth, leaving her suspended between the terrifying possibility of destiny rewritten and the crushing certainty of a fate already sealed. The internal battle inside Alara raged, leaving her suspended in a precarious balance between a terrifying possibility and a crushing certainty, when suddenly, a piercing guttural shriek tore through the crisp autumn air. It was a sound that instantly silenced the murmuring crowd, a raw cry of alarm that spoke of immediate, desperate danger. The festive atmosphere, only moments before filled with the buzz of the choosing ceremony, shattered like fragile glass. Panic erupted, swift and brutal, as a massive rogue timber wolf, its eyes glowing with malevolent hunger, burst from the surrounding forest, its powerful jaws already clamped around the leg of a young clan member. More howls followed, echoing through the trees, indicating not just one, but an entire pack of unusually aggressive wolves, driven by an unseen madness, now descended upon the unprepared gathering. Chaos reigned. Screams mingled with shouts as warriors, caught off guard, fumbled for their weapons. The carefully constructed order of the ceremony dissolved into a desperate struggle for survival. Children cried, women huddled together in terror, and even some of the seasoned warriors momentarily froze, overwhelmed by the sudden, ferocious assault. The Alpha King's guards, though highly trained, were outnumbered and spread thin, struggling to form a defensive perimeter amidst the stampede of terrified villagers. It was an unforeseen circumstance, a crisis that struck with terrifying speed and ferocity, testing the very foundations of the clan's resilience. In the heart of this terrifying pandemonium, while most succumbed to fear or struggled inefficiently, Alara moved with an almost preternatural calm. Her years of quiet observation, of learning the land and its creatures in solitude, now coalesced into decisive action. Her gaze, usually downcast, sharpened with a fierce resolve. While others fled indiscriminately, she sprinted not away, but towards the edge of the chaos where a group of younger children, separated from their parents, whimpered in terror. Her unique knowledge, honed in the shadows and dismissed by all, proved instantly vital. She didn't possess a warrior's blade, but she knew the forest's hidden paths, the natural choke points, and the calming pheromones of certain herbs that could temporarily deter predatory beasts. Her hand darted to her pouch, extracting a small tightly packed bundle of dried wolfsbane and stinging nettle. With surprising agility, she created a diversion, throwing the pungent mix towards the lead wolf, whose momentary confusion allowed a fallen guard to retrieve his weapon. She then herded the terrified children into a shallow cave she knew, its entrance partially obscured by thick brambles, quickly covering it further with loose branches, her movements precise and efficient. She spoke to them in hushed, steady tones, a stark contrast to the frightened cries around them, instilling a fragile sense of security. She acted decisively and selflessly, not seeking glory, but driven by an innate need to protect, surprising everyone who happened to glance her way amidst the swirling chaos. The Alpha King, Torvin, a seasoned warrior and a leader accustomed to maintaining composure in the face of danger, fought alongside his guards, his blade a blur against the snarling beasts. Yet, even as he battled, his keen senses, trained to observe every nuance of a battlefield, registered the anomaly that was Elara. He saw her not as a fleeing villager, but as a small, determined figure, moving with purpose and intelligence distinct from the general panic. He witnessed her quick thinking, the way she used her knowledge of nature, not brute force, to ward off a lunging wolf from a fallen elder. He saw her gathering the children, her hands gentle but firm, guiding them to safety. Her strategic thinking, a trait he valued above almost all others in a potential leader, was on full display as she instinctively recognized vulnerabilities in the pack's assault and directed a group of confused villagers away from a particularly dangerous flank. Her compassionate leadership shone through, a stark, almost blinding contrast to the widespread fear and disarray that gripped many of the other potential candidates for queen, who, though brave, lacked her unconventional wisdom in this specific, chaotic scenario. Torvin's eyes, even amidst the ferocity of the battle, kept finding her, his mind cataloging each of her extraordinary actions, each display of quiet courage. He saw not the cursed name, but an unparalleled spirit. The Alpha King, Torvin, his jaw tight with grim determination, personally sought out Elara after the last of the rogue wolves had been driven back into the forest, leaving behind a scene of lingering tension and hushed relief. The immediate danger had passed, but the air still thrummed with the aftershocks of panic and the raw scent of fear. He found her not among the celebrating warriors, nor tending to her own slight scrapes, but quietly comforting a trembling young boy whose mother had been injured in the fray. Her hands were gentle, her voice a low, soothing murmur that belied the recent chaos. Torvin approached her, his heavy leather armor creaking softly with each step. His presence, even in this moment of shared vulnerability, commanded respect, and a hush fell over the small group around Elara. She looked up, her eyes, usually downcast, now held a deep, unwavering gaze that met his squarely. "Your actions," Torvin began, his voice deep and measured, "were unexpected and invaluable." This was their first meaningful exchange, a bridge finally forming between the feared Alpha and the ostracized girl. "Tell me," he continued, his tone devoid of judgment, only curiosity, "what is your name and from what lineage do you hail? And how did you come to possess such knowledge, such courage, in a moment when others faltered?" He didn't ask if she had been afraid, for he had seen the controlled tremor in her hands, but how she had overcome it. Elara hesitated for only a fraction of a second, her gaze dropping briefly before lifting again, her resolve solidifying. She knew this moment. This was the precipice where she either continued to hide or laid bare the truth that had defined her entire life. With a deep breath she spoke, her voice clear and steady despite the lingering tremor in her heart. "My name is Elara, Alpha King," she began, the cursed name feeling heavy on her tongue. "And I am of no significant lineage, merely a distant branch of the Greywood, one often forgotten. As for my knowledge," a faint melancholic smile touched her lips, "it comes from necessity. The burden of my name, the ostracization, it pushed me to the fringes. While others were taught the ways of celebration and social grace, I learned the whispers of the forest, the signs of the hunt, the properties of every herb and root. I observed what others ignored. I had to adapt to survive, in ways that those within the clan's embrace never needed to." She spoke candidly, without an ounce of self-pity, simply stating the facts of her existence, revealing the stark truth of her painful journey. She explained how her solitary existence had led her to master survival skills, to understand the nuanced behavior of the creatures of the wild, and to cultivate a resilience born of constant adversity. She described how the fear instilled by her name had paradoxically granted her a different kind of freedom, the freedom to learn outside the rigid strictures of clan tradition, to become keenly aware of the world around her, unencumbered by expectations or social obligations. The Alpha King listened, his expression unwavering, absorbing every word. He saw the honesty in her eyes, the quiet strength in her posture, and the profound wisdom in her candid confession. He saw not the pitiful figure of a cursed girl, but a spirit forged in fire, tempered by solitude and sharpened by adversity. He was visibly impressed by her resilience, a quality he valued above all others, and by her unconventional wisdom, born from a life lived outside the norm. He saw beyond the ancient superstition, beyond the whispers and the inherited fear, to a powerful untamed spirit that had not only survived but thrived in its own unique way. Her explanation painted a vivid picture of a life defined by hardship, yet embraced with a quiet determination that few could ever hope to possess. There was no complaint in her voice, only a factual account of how she had honed her remarkable skills. This was not the broken girl the elders had described. This was a woman of substance, of undeniable capability. The intrigue deepened in the Alpha King's eyes, a rare and potent emotion taking root. He had sought a queen of strength and wisdom, and in Elara, he was beginning to see both, presented in a form utterly unexpected, utterly unconventional. His gaze lingered on her, a silent acknowledgement of the shift occurring within his own perception. The cursed name, once a barrier, now seemed to cloak a mystery begging to be unraveled. The Alpha King's lingering gaze, however subtle, however fleeting, did not escape the notice of the keen-eyed clan elders and the ambitious candidates who had been vying for his attention. Whispers, initially hushed and incredulous, began to circulate through the assembly like a cold dread, quickly turning into open displeasure and unconcealed concern. The very idea of the Alpha King showing any interest in Elara, the girl burdened with the most cursed name, was not just unthinkable. It was an affront to their deeply ingrained traditions and a direct challenge to the prophecy that had guided their clan for generations. The prophecy speaks of ruin, one elder, his voice raspy with age and alarm, muttered to another, loud enough for those nearby to hear. She will bring disaster upon us all, just as foretold. Others openly voiced their apprehension, their fear of the ancient warnings overriding any objective assessment of Elara's recent heroism. They cited the clan's long-held beliefs, the sacred texts, and the dire warnings passed down through countless generations, all pointing to the inevitable doom that Elara's name promised. The ambitious candidates, acutely aware of the shift in the Alpha King's attention, flared with a mixture of jealousy and indignation. How could this outcast, this girl of ill omen, possibly be considered when they, with their impeccable lineage and perfected graces, stood ready? They began to subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, remind the Alpha King and his advisors of Elara's unfortunate heritage, emphasizing the risk she posed to the clan's stability and future. Their arguments, though rooted in self-preservation and traditionalism, carried weight within the community, fanning the flames of doubt and fear that already simmered beneath the surface. The Alpha King, Torvin, however, was not one to be swayed by mere whispers or the clamor of anxious voices. He acknowledged the traditions, yes, for he was a leader deeply respectful of his people's heritage, but he also possessed a formidable intellect and a forward-thinking vision that saw beyond superficialities. He listened patiently to the elders' concerns, allowing them to voice their fears and their adherence to ancient lore. His expression remained unreadable, but a subtle shift in his posture, a barely perceptible tightening of his jaw, indicated his growing resolve. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but imbued with an undeniable authority that brooked no argument. "The strength of a queen," he declared, his gaze sweeping across the faces of the assembled elders, "is not measured solely by her lineage or the whispers of old prophecies. It is measured by her wisdom in crisis, her courage in adversity, and her ability to protect and guide her people, regardless of the name she bears." He did not directly refute the prophecy, but rather reinterpreted what constituted true worth and leadership. He subtly pushed back against their rigid adherence to the old ways, emphasizing the need for qualities that transcended mere birthright. In an era fraught with external threats and internal strife, He argued. A queen's value lay in her tangible contributions, her capacity for decisive action and intelligent thought, rather than the shadow of an ancient superstition. He hinted that while tradition held importance, the clan's survival and prosperity required a leader who could adapt and innovate, a leader whose spirit was unburdened by archaic fears. For Elara, the backlash was immediate and suffocating. She felt the full weight of the clan's scrutiny, 1,000 eyes piercing her with suspicion, fear, and resentment. The elders' pronouncements, the candidates' thinly veiled hostility, and the palpable discomfort from the common folk created an almost physical barrier around her, isolating her even more than before. Every movement she made, every glance she returned, was dissected and judged. The deep-seated fear her name evoked, a fear that had been dormant in the common consciousness, was now reignited, burning brightly and directed squarely at her. She was once again the pariah, but this time under the intense, glaring spotlight of the Alpha King's unexpected favor. The pressure was immense, a crushing burden that threatened to overwhelm her newfound fragile sense of self. Yet, despite the renewed ostracization and the palpable hostility from nearly every corner of the clan, she stood firm. The Alpha King's defense, however subtle, however indirect, had ignited a spark of defiance within her. His acknowledgement of her worth, her capabilities, had given her a strength she hadn't known she possessed. She held her head high, meeting the stairs with a quiet dignity, refusing to shrink back into the shadows. The connection that had formed between her and the Alpha King, a bond forged in the crucible of chaos and challenged by the oldest fears of their people, was still fresh, still fragile, but it was real. And for the first time in her life, Elara felt that she was not entirely alone against the world. She would not allow their fear to dictate her destiny, not when a glimmer of something more, something profoundly significant, now lay within her reach. The Alpha King, Torvin, his conviction about Elara's character solidifying with each passing day, understood that her path to queenship would require more than just his unwavering support. It demanded a deeper understanding, not only for himself but eventually for his people. He needed to witness her spirit tested under conditions that revealed the very core of her being, a trial that went beyond physical prowess or intellectual debate. He devised a personal unannounced test, a situation tailored to expose the true measure of her moral compass and profound empathy. It was not a public display, but a subtle, carefully orchestrated scenario designed to catch her unawares, to see how she would react when faced with a difficult moral choice, when instinct, not expectation, guided her actions. One brisk morning, as the clan began to slowly re-establish its daily rhythms after the wolf attack, Torvin observed Elara from a distance. He had arranged for a small hunting party to return with a particularly aggressive, injured wolf cub, feigning extreme difficulty in its capture and implying its imminent death from its wounds. The scenario was staged carefully. The cub, though in truth only lightly sedated and merely appearing gravely hurt, was presented as a hopeless case, snarling weakly, its eyes wide with fear and pain. The hunters, following Torvin's quiet instructions, spoke of the cub as a lost cause, a dangerous animal that should be dispatched quickly to prevent further harm, especially after the recent attack. They even suggested using its pelt to warn off others, implying a pragmatic, if brutal, solution. Torvin watched as Elara, drawn by the commotion and the cub's distressed whimpers, approached the scene. Her face, usually composed, showed a flicker of raw pain as she knelt, examining the small creature with a tenderness that surprised the mock hunters. Her assessment was swift and silent. She noted the wound, which to her experienced eye, was not as fatal as described. She felt the cub's frantic heartbeat, saw the terror in its eyes, and understood that its aggression stemmed from fear, not inherent malice. This was the moment of her test. The hunters, following their script, urged her to agree with their assessment, to advocate for the quick, practical end. They spoke of the cub becoming a threat once healed, of the resources it would consume, of the risk it posed to the community still reeling from the recent attack. It was a choice between what seemed practical and what felt deeply right. Elara paused, her fingers gently stroking the cub's matted fur. Her brow furrowed in thought. Her mind raced, weighing the clan's recent trauma against the innocent suffering before her. Then, with a quiet strength that belied her gentle demeanor, Elara made her difficult moral choice. "No," she stated, her voice soft but resolute. her gaze sweeping from the cub to the hunters, then briefly towards where she sensed Torvin's unseen presence. This cub is in pain, yes, but its wound is not mortal. Its aggression is a product of fear. To kill it now would be to succumb to our own fear, to repay suffering with cruelty. We are not hunters of the helpless. We are guardians of this land, and that includes its creatures, even those who stray. She then began to calmly instruct the hunters on how to properly tend to the cub's injuries, describing specific herbs and a method of containment that would allow it to heal without posing a threat, emphasizing a path of rehabilitation and eventual release back into the wild when strong enough. She prioritized the greater good, not just the cub's well-being, but the well-being of the clan's very soul, its moral standing, even at the personal cost of potentially inviting more scrutiny for her compassionate, unconventional stance. She demonstrated a profound empathy that extended beyond her own species, advocating for justice and mercy in a situation where expediency and fear dictated otherwise. This display, observed meticulously by Torvin, solidified his conviction about Alara's true character. There was no hesitation, no calculation for personal gain, only pure, unadulterated integrity and an unwavering moral compass. He saw a queen who would lead with both strength and heart, a leader who understood that true power lay not in dominance, but in compassion. The bond between them, already nascent, deepened profoundly. Torvin knew with an absolute certainty that Alara was not merely suitable, but essential to the future of his people. Her cursed name to him had become a testament to her unique, unyielding spirit. He had found his queen. The revelation of Alara's unwavering moral compass, her profound empathy in the private test, only served to intensify the clan's resistance, fueling the fire of their long-held prejudices. The elders, their faces etched with renewed alarm, invoked ancient texts and dire warnings, their voices rising in a concerted effort to sway the Alpha King's decision. They gathered in the great hall, their cloaks rustling like dry leaves, creating a suffocating atmosphere of gloom and fear. One elder old man Theron, whose memory stretched back through generations, unrolled a brittle parchment, its edges crumbling with age, and pointed a trembling finger at faded symbols. He spoke of omens, of seasons of blight that followed those with the cursed name, of harvests that failed and children born sickly. These were not mere suggestions. They were presented as undeniable truths, etched into the very fabric of their history, threatening to unravel the clan's hard-won stability. They painted vivid, terrifying pictures of ruin, of a future where their prosperity withered under the shadow of Alara's supposed ill fortune. Their arguments resonated deeply with many of the clan members, who, though impressed by Alara's recent heroics, still carried the weight of generations of ingrained superstition. The whispers turned into murmurs, and the murmurs into outright discontent, a dangerous rumble threatening the fragile peace. They pleaded with the Alpha King, urging him to reconsider, to choose a queen whose name carried blessings, not curses, a queen who would ensure their survival, not their downfall. Alara, amidst this escalating tide of opposition, refused to cower. She stood before the assembled elders and clan members, her stance firm, her gaze unwavering, even as their accusatory eyes bore into her. She didn't respond with anger or resentment, emotions that would have only confirmed their worst fears. Instead, she confronted the accusations and fears head-on, not with defensive rhetoric, but with reasoned arguments and a quiet dignity that began, subtly, to disarm some of her most vehement detractors. "I understand your fear," she began, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the murmuring crowd. "I have lived with this fear, this burden my entire life. But look around you. Has the sky fallen since my actions against the wolves? Have the crops withered? Did the cub I tended perish because of my name, or has it thrived?" She gestured to the young boy she had comforted after the wolf attack, now recovered and standing by his mother, and then to the small, healthy wolf cub, now safely housed in a temporary enclosure under her care, its snarls replaced by tentative whines. "My name," she continued, "has been a source of pain for me, yes, but it has also been a crucible. It forced me to learn, to adapt, to understand the world in ways others protected by tradition did not need to. If ruin is to be found, it is in stagnant fear, in blindness to new strengths, not in a name." She spoke of the importance of judging individuals by their deeds, not by inherited superstition, reminding them of the very real threat the wolves had posed. a threat she had actively helped to quell. Her logical approach, her calm demeanor, and the undeniable evidence of her positive impact in the recent crisis, even if localized, caused a few elders to shift uncomfortably, their certainty momentarily shaken. The Alpha King Torvin watched Alara with a profound sense of pride and unwavering conviction. Her courage in facing the clan's entrenched fears, her eloquent and dignified defense, only solidified his resolve. He stepped forward, his powerful presence commanding immediate silence. His voice when he spoke was not loud, but it carried the weight of his authority, resonating through the great hall. "My people," he declared, his gaze sweeping across the faces of every elder, every clan member. "I have listened to your concerns and I honor the traditions that have guided us. But a leader must also look to the future, to the strength that lies beyond old fears. Alara's deeds speak louder than any ancient whisper." He did not yet make his final, binding declaration, for he knew the clan needed time to process this radical shift in perspective. However, he began to publicly defend his judgment, subtly hinting at a decision that would defy convention, but was rooted in a deeper, more profound understanding of true leadership and the clan's ultimate well-being. "I seek a queen strong enough to face any challenge, wise enough to see beyond prejudice, and compassionate enough to unite our people. I seek a queen who earns her place through action, not simply birthright or luck of name. And I believe," he concluded, his eyes firmly fixed on Alara, a clear message passing between them, "that such a queen will lead us to an era of unprecedented prosperity and unshakable unity." The words hung in the air, a potent challenge to the ancient order, a promise of a new dawn. The silence that followed the Alpha King's pronouncement was not empty. It was thick with unspoken questions, with the lingering ghost of the prophecy, and with the dawning realization that the very foundations of their understanding were being challenged. Many of the clan members, especially the younger generation who had witnessed Alara's bravery firsthand, found themselves caught between the ingrained fear passed down through generations and the undeniable truth of her actions. The elders, though momentarily silenced by Torvin's authority, still clung to their convictions, their minds unwilling to relinquish centuries of tradition. It was in this moment of profound uncertainty, this delicate balance between past and future, that an unexpected figure emerged from the shadowy periphery of the great hall. An old woman, her face a web of deep wrinkles, her eyes milky with age but burning with an ancient wisdom, slowly made her way to the center. Her name was Lyra, and she was known as the keeper of forgotten lore, a recluse whose knowledge was often dismissed as rambling eccentricity. Lyra, leaning heavily on a gnarled staff, cleared her throat, a dry, rasping sound that nonetheless cut through the hushed tension. "You speak of the cursed name," she began, her voice surprisingly strong. "But you speak from a partial truth, from fear that has twisted understanding for far too long." She looked directly at the Alpha King, then swept her gaze across the assembled elders. "The prophecy recorded in the oldest scripts, not the copies made when fear clouded judgment, says this. A name once feared shall break the chains of old. From shadow's birth a new era unfold. Not ruin but rupture. Not curse but catalyst. For strength renewed, traditions she will twist." A collective gasp rippled through the hall. The elders exchanged bewildered glances. They had never heard this interpretation, or if they had, it had been deliberately suppressed. Lyra continued, her voice gaining power. "The cursed name was never about misfortune. It was about a name that would challenge, that would disrupt, that would ultimately break the stagnant ways of generations to pave the path for a new era of strength and adaptability. It was a prophecy of change, not destruction." This revelation struck the clan like a bolt of lightning, shaking their deeply held beliefs to their very core. The cursed name, Alara, was not a bringer of ruin, but a symbol of necessary evolution, a catalyst for transformation. Lyra then turned her ancient gaze upon Alara, a soft, knowing smile gracing her lips. "And Alara, your name, it means bright, shining one in the ancient tongue, a language long forgotten by many, but preserved in the true scrolls. It also carries a deeper meaning in the forgotten dialect of the first ancestors. She who unites the broken. You are not of a minor branch, child. Your lineage, though obscured by time and fear, connects directly to the high shamans of the Silverwood clan, a clan believed extinct, renowned for their gifts of healing, foresight, and their unparalleled ability to communicate with the spirits of the forest. They were the true guardians of wisdom, the ones who chose to live humbly, outside the glare of power, guiding from the shadows. Lyra's words resonated with an undeniable truth, unlocking ancient memories that had been deliberately or accidentally forgotten. Alera's name, passed down through those very generations of hidden lineage, carried a hidden meaning, a connection to an ancient, powerful heritage that was not only misunderstood, but had been actively suppressed by those who feared the shaman's influence or perhaps sought to consolidate their own power. The Silverwood clan, believed lost to history, had been quiet observers, their descendants blending into other clans, their true heritage masked by the very superstitions that ironically marked Alera. This was not just about a name, it was about a forgotten legacy, a powerful bloodline that had been deliberately obscured. This profound revelation began to turn the tide of public opinion with astonishing speed. The elders, though still grappling with the monumental shift in their understanding, could not deny the authority in Lyra's voice, nor the compelling logic of the reinterpreted prophecy and the rediscovered heritage. The whispers now were of awe, of wonder, not fear. Many who had previously scorned and avoided Alera now looked at her with a mixture of shame and burgeoning respect. The younger clan members, already swayed by her courage, found their admiration validated and amplified. The ingrained prejudice and superstition that had shackled the clan for so long began to crumble, replaced by a dawning sense of hope and an understanding of a future no longer bound by fear, but by the promise of change. Alera, the once cursed, was now seen as the destined one, her true purpose finally unveiled. The Alpha King, Torvin, his heart swelling with a mixture of vindication and profound certainty, stood tall before his assembled clan during the final tension-filled choosing ceremony. The air, still electrified by Lyra's revelations and the shattering of ancient myths, hummed with anticipation. He let the murmurs subside, allowing the weight of the new truths to settle upon his people before he spoke. His voice, strong and resonant, carried to every corner of the great hall, imbued with an unwavering conviction that left no room for doubt. "Clan Greywood," he began, his gaze sweeping across the multitude of faces, from the humbled elders to the awestruck youths. "For generations we have lived under the shadow of a prophecy misunderstood, fearing a name that, in truth, held our salvation. Today that shadow lifts." He paused, his eyes finding Alera, who stood with newfound grace, her once downcast gaze now bright with quiet strength. "Today I choose not based on superficial beauty or political alliance, but on true strength, tested wisdom, and a spirit forged for leadership." He extended his hand towards Alera, a powerful gesture of acceptance and honor. "I choose Alera, she who bore the most cursed name in our clan, as my queen. She is the bright, shining one, the she who unites the broken, the catalyst our clan needs to twist old traditions into new, enduring strengths." A collective gasp rippled through the hall, a sound of initial shock and profound disbelief, quickly followed by a cacophony of reactions. It was a chaotic symphony of emotions, grudging acceptance from some of the older, more stubborn members who still wrestled with their ingrained fears, fervent support from those who had witnessed Alera's actions and understood the new interpretation of the prophecy, and continued, though now significantly muted, dissent from a select few whose prejudice ran too deep to be easily swayed. Whispers erupted again, but this time they were different. No longer solely of fear, but of wonder, speculation, and a hesitant hope for the future. The Alpha King's conviction, clear and unyielding, quelled the most vocal opposition, his authority leaving little room for open rebellion, but the internal battles within many clan members were far from over. There were those who clapped hesitantly, their eyes still wide with uncertainty, and those who cheered with genuine relief, seeing a beacon of change. The scene was a tapestry of shifting perceptions, a palpable tension between the weight of the past and the promise of a future boldly declared. Alera, standing before her clan, a people who had once shunned her, felt the immense weight of the moment. It was not just the weight of a crown, but the weight of generations of misunderstanding, of fear and of expectation. With a grace born of resilience and a humility honed by adversity, she accepted the mantle of queen. She stepped forward, her hand meeting Torvin's, a symbolic gesture that sent a ripple of anticipation through the assembly. Her gaze swept across the faces of her people, acknowledging their apprehension, their lingering doubts, but also their nascent hope. I accept this sacred trust, she stated, her voice clear and resonant, carrying the weight of her unique journey. I understand the challenges that lie ahead, both within our clan and beyond. I pledge to lead with wisdom, compassion, and the unwavering conviction that our true strength lies not in clinging to outdated fears, but in embracing the power of unity, adaptation, and unwavering courage. My name, once a burden, will now be a beacon of innovation and renewed purpose. Her acceptance was not one of triumph, but of profound responsibility, recognizing that the path ahead would be fraught with obstacles, but that she, with her Alpha King, was ready to face them, paving the way for a new era for the Greywood clan. Alara's acceptance, filled with grace and a potent sense of responsibility, marked not an end, but the beginning of an entirely new set of challenges. Her elevation to queenship, though publicly announced by the resolute Alpha King and supported by Lyra's ancient revelations, did not instantly erase generations of ingrained prejudice and fear. She faced immediate and deeply ingrained skepticism, not only from the internal factions within her own clan, the still grumbling elders and those deeply bound by tradition, but also from external clans. Whispers of the Cursed Queen quickly spread beyond Greywood borders, reaching neighboring territories and potential rivals who saw her appointment as a sign of weakness, a dangerous deviation from established norms. Some minor clans, emboldened by the perceived instability, tested Greywood's resolve with border incursions and increased poaching, subtly probing for weakness. Internally, while open defiance had ceased, a passive resistance lingered. Decisions Alara made were sometimes met with slow compliance, questioning glances, or deliberate delays in execution, particularly from those who felt their authority diminished or their beliefs challenged. She found that leading was not only about making decisions but about painstakingly building trust where only suspicion had resided, about dismantling walls of fear brick by painful brick. Every decree, every change was scrutinized under an unforgiving lens, demanding not just wisdom, but an almost superhuman patience and resilience. Undeterred by the lingering resistance, Alara began to implement subtle but profoundly significant changes, drawing on the unique experiences and perspectives forged in her solitary, ostracized life. Her leadership was characterized not by a heavy hand, but by an innovative spirit and a deep, empathetic understanding of the clan's needs, particularly those of the marginalized members she had once counted herself among. Recognizing the inefficiencies of traditional hunting parties, she introduced new tracking methods she had perfected, observing patterns in wildlife migration that drastically improved hunt yields, ensuring no one in the clan went hungry. She established communal herb gardens, teaching the young ones about medicinal plants she had discovered in her wanderings, skills previously dismissed as witchcraft, but now proving invaluable for healing. Her focus was on practical solutions that benefited everyone, often sidestepping the rigid hierarchies that had previously dictated resource allocation. She created an informal council composed not of just elders, but of skilled artisans, seasoned hunters, and even the often overlooked women who managed the clan's daily logistics, valuing diverse perspectives over inherited status. She championed the idea of cross-training, encouraging warriors to learn basic healing and gatherers to understand defense tactics, fostering a sense of shared responsibility and collective strength that had been absent before. Her approach was revolutionary, gently dismantling old, inefficient structures by demonstrating tangible improvements that were difficult to argue against. These were not sweeping, disruptive reforms, but carefully considered innovations that brought immediate positive impacts, slowly but surely winning over the skeptics. Her empathy extended to even the smallest members of the clan. She personally oversaw the creation of a secure creche where mothers could leave their children while they worked, a stark contrast to the previous system where young children often accompanied their parents into potentially dangerous environments. Throughout this challenging period of transition and reform, the Alpha King Torvin stood steadfastly by Alara's side, a pillar of unwavering support. He understood the immense pressure she was under, the centuries of prejudice she battled daily, and he knew that his public affirmation was crucial to her success. He made it a point to attend her small, informal council meetings, listening intently to her proposed changes and offering his full, visible endorsement. When an elder grumbled about Alara's suggestion to rotate guard duties, Torvin calmly but firmly explained the strategic advantages, reinforcing Alara's foresight. When neighboring clans sent messengers questioning her legitimacy, Torvin met them with uncompromising authority, making it clear that Alara was his chosen queen, and any disrespect towards her was disrespect towards him and the entire Greywood clan. His presence beside her at public gatherings was a silent, powerful testament to his unwavering trust, his hand often resting reassuringly on her back, his gaze radiating pride and deep affection. He did not overshadow her but uplifted her, allowing her voice to be heard and her vision to take root. His support was not merely ceremonial. It was active, constant, and profoundly empowering, providing Alara with the shield of his authority, while she navigated the turbulent waters of leadership, solidifying her position with each passing day. The quiet confidence Alara had begun to foster, supported by Torvin's unwavering trust, was about to face its most formidable test yet. Just as the internal murmurs of discontent began to wane under the weight of her successful initiatives, a serious external threat emerged, casting a long, ominous shadow over the Greywood lands. Scouts reported increasingly aggressive movements from the notorious Ashfang Pack, a ruthless and notoriously territorial group of wolves from the barren northern mountains, known for their sheer brutality and cunning. They were encroaching further and further into Greywood hunting grounds, their raids growing bolder, culminating in the brazen slaughter of a full Greywood patrol on the clan's northernmost border. This was no mere territorial dispute. It was an open declaration of war, a direct challenge to the Alpha King's authority and, by extension, to Alara's nascent leadership. The Ashfang Alpha, a scarred, monstrous beast named Kale, was rumored to be twice the size of a normal wolf, with eyes like burning coals, leading his pack with an almost intelligent malevolence. The fear that had begun to recede within the clan surged anew, now directed not at a cursed name, but at a tangible, terrifying enemy. Many of the older warriors, steeped in traditional tactics, immediately advocated for a swift, overwhelming counterattack, a direct confrontation to assert their dominance. But Alara, remembering the chaos of the previous wolf attack and understanding the unique, strategic brutality of the Ashfang, knew such a move would be disastrously predictable and costly. Alara, however, possessed a strategic mind sharpened by a lifetime of observing, analyzing, and adapting, skills honed in solitude and dismissed by others until now. While the clan's warriors clamored for a frontal assault, she withdrew, her thoughts swirling, connecting seemingly disparate pieces of knowledge accumulated over years of wandering the wilderness. She remembered the Ashfang's preferred hunting routes, the seasonal movements of the larger prey animals they targeted, and the peculiar geological formations of the northern mountains. She also recalled an obscure legend from her Silverwood ancestors, a tale of trickery and illusion used against an ancient foe. Instead of preparing for a clash of brute force, Alara meticulously devised an unconventional solution, a strategy that utilized her overlooked knowledge and insights, a plan that seemed utterly bizarre to the seasoned Greywood warriors. She proposed a multi-pronged approach, not a direct engagement, but a series of calculated diversions, environmental manipulations, and a psychological war designed to disorient and scatter the Ashfang Pack without a single large-scale battle. She suggested using specific, highly pungent herbs to mask their scents, creating false trails and even altering the natural landscape in subtle ways, like diverting a small stream to create a temporary bog or felling trees to block key passes, all designed to funnel the Ashfang into an area of their own choosing, an area that would turn their ferocity against them. Her plan involved no glorious charges, but instead relied on patience, deception, and a profound understanding of the natural world and the Ashfang's predatory instincts. Her proposal was met with a mixture of disbelief and outright skepticism from the War Council. Some warriors scoffed, calling it Zhensky cunning, or woman's trickery, deeming it beneath the dignity of the Greywood. But Torvin, remembering her decisive actions during the previous crisis, and now trusting her instincts implicitly, listened intently. He alone saw the genius in her unconventional approach, the way it leveraged strengths the clan often ignored. With his unwavering support, Alara's strategy was reluctantly adopted, though many participated with visible doubt and apprehension. Teams were dispatched to implement her environmental modifications, to lay the herbal scent traps, and to prepare the designated kill zone, not for a direct fight, but for a coordinated ambush that would maximize terrain advantage and minimize Greywood casualties. As the Ashfang Pack, lured by false signs and disoriented by the shifting landscape, moved into the carefully prepared trap. Their aggressive confidence turned to confusion. They found themselves ensnared, not by physical bindings, but by a web of environmental obstacles and sensory overload. The Greywood warriors, hidden and positioned by Alara's meticulous planning, then struck with precision, not engaging in prolonged combat, but delivering decisive blows at critical moments, scattering the pack's cohesion. The Ashfang Alpha, Kale, found himself isolated and disoriented, his brute strength useless against an enemy he couldn't find, an environment that betrayed him. The decisive victory against the Ashfang pack, achieved with remarkably few Greywood casualties, sent shockwaves of awe and respect through the clan. Alara's unconventional leadership, initially met with skepticism, proved not only effective but brilliantly so. The clan, previously fractured by doubt and fear, found a common ground in their shared relief and the undeniable success that Alara had orchestrated. Her strategic mind, once considered an oddity, was now hailed as a prodigious gift, a testament to her unique and invaluable worth. The warriors who had scoffed now lauded her cunning, appreciating her ability to save lives through intelligence rather than brute force. The elders, witnessing the tangible evidence of her wisdom, could no longer cling to their ancient prejudices. The reinterpretation of the prophecy now resonated with undeniable truth. Her successful leadership in this crucial crisis solidified her position beyond doubt, earning her the deep respect and unwavering loyalty of the vast majority of the clan members. The few remaining dissenters, their arguments now hollow and their fear-mongering disproven by undeniable results, found themselves isolated and irrelevant. The clan, once divided by superstition and internal strife, was finally united, not just against a common enemy, but behind their queen Alara. The cursed name no longer inspired fear, but a profound, almost reverent admiration. The few remaining dissenters, their arguments now hollow and their fear-mongering disproven by undeniable results, found themselves isolated and irrelevant. The clan, once divided by superstition and internal strife, was finally united, not just against a common enemy, but behind their queen Alara. The cursed name no longer inspired fear, but a profound, almost reverent admiration. With the external threat neutralized and the clan united in admiration, Alara now turned her attention to the scattered pockets of lingering dissent, those who still clung to the old fears, albeit with significantly less fervor. She understood that true unity meant addressing these anxieties head-on, not with punishment or condemnation, but with open dialogue and tangible proof of her constructive leadership. She convened a series of open forums, inviting anyone with unresolved concerns to voice them. This was a radical departure from the traditional, hierarchical structure where decisions flowed downwards. At these gatherings, Alara did not simply issue pronouncements. She listened patiently and respectfully to every grievance, every lingering doubt, allowing individuals to articulate the fears that had been instilled in them for generations. She spoke calmly, her voice even and persuasive, explaining her decisions not as decrees, but as reasoned choices based on observation and a genuine desire for the clan's well-being. She highlighted how her unconventional methods, born from her cursed past, had paradoxically led to unprecedented prosperity and security. She presented data. The increased hunting yields, the decreased sickness due to her herbal remedies, the significantly lower casualty count. From the Ashfang conflict, she demonstrated through irrefutable results that her leadership was not a threat, but a profound blessing. One elder, whose voice had previously been among the loudest in denouncing her, rose with a troubled expression. He spoke of the fear that still gnawed at him, a lifelong conditioning he struggled to shake. Alara listened intently, her gaze gentle, then addressed his concerns directly, offering not an admonishment but a solution. She proposed a new system of rotating mentorship, pairing younger, more open-minded clan members with the elders, encouraging an exchange of wisdom and new ideas. She also suggested a project for the skeptics, a task tailored to their skills that would directly contribute to the new initiatives, allowing them to witness the benefits firsthand, to become part of the solution rather than remaining outside it. This approach, rooted in inclusion and practical demonstration rather than confrontation, proved remarkably effective. Many of the dissenters, seeing their fears acknowledged and their contributions valued, began to slowly integrate, their skepticism giving way to grudging respect. then to active participation. Some even became her most ardent supporters, their conversion a testament to the power of her reasoned leadership. Beyond simply addressing the dissenters, Alara demonstrated a remarkable capacity for forgiveness and understanding towards those who had openly wronged her in the past. She did not seek retribution for the years of ostracization, the whispered slurs, or the active attempts to undermine her. Instead, she offered opportunities, extended goodwill, and fostered an environment of reconciliation. When the former lead candidate for queen, whose ambition had often manifested as cruel taunts towards Alara, found herself needing assistance after a personal tragedy, Alara was among the first to offer aid and comfort, without a hint of reproach. She understood that carrying grudges only perpetuated the cycle of division and fear. Her philosophy was clear. The clan needed to heal and move forward, and that healing began with compassionate leadership. This profound act of forgiveness, demonstrated repeatedly in various instances, further cemented her image as a compassionate and wise leader, a queen who held no bitterness, only a vision for a strong, united future. She showed them that true power lay not in vengeance, but in the ability to transcend past wrongs and build bridges towards a harmonious tomorrow. As Alara's leadership blossomed and the clan unified under her gentle yet firm guidance, the bond between her and the Alpha King deepened, evolving from one of profound respect and admiration into an incandescent, passionate love. Their connection, initially forged in crisis and intellectual understanding, now radiated a warmth and intensity that was palpable to the entire clan. Torvin, the formidable Alpha King, who had once been perceived as stoic and unyielding, now openly displayed his affection and pride for his queen. His hand often sought hers during public gatherings, a silent reassurance, and his eyes, when they met hers, held a depth of emotion that spoke volumes. They were not merely rulers, they were partners, complements, their individual strengths weaving together to form an unbreakable whole. Their love was visible in the way they consulted each other, in the shared laughter that sometimes escaped them during a council meeting, in the quiet moments they stole away from their duties to walk the forest paths, their hands intertwined. It was a love that became a legend in its own right, inspiring the clan and serving as a living testament to the prophecy's true meaning, that from the most unexpected places a profound and transformative love could arise, powerful enough to heal ancient wounds and redefine a destiny. The few remaining dissenters, their arguments now hollow and their fear-mongering disproven by undeniable results, found themselves isolated and irrelevant. The clan, once divided by superstition and internal strife, was finally united, not just against a common enemy, but behind their queen Alara. The cursed name no longer inspired fear, but a profound, almost reverent admiration. With their trust solidified and their fears largely assuaged, the Greywood clan began to flourish under Queen Alara's innovative and compassionate rule. It was a golden age, an era of unprecedented stability and prosperity that echoed the promises whispered in the reinterpreted prophecy. The once feared whispers of her cursed name now carried a different resonance. It was seen as a symbol of strength forged in adversity, a testament to new beginnings rising from the ashes of old prejudices. The fields yielded bountiful harvests, not through backbreaking labor alone, but through Alara's introduction of rotation farming and natural pest deterrence learned from her years in the wild. The hunters returned with full game bags, guided by maps and tracking techniques she had painstakingly taught them, ensuring a sustainable use of their resources. Children, once hushed and fearful of her presence, now flocked to her, eager to hear her stories of the forest or to learn the properties of healing herbs, their eyes bright with innocent admiration. The clan's artisans, inspired by the newfound sense of unity and hope, created works of beauty and utility that became renowned even in distant lands. Trade flourished, not through aggressive expansion, but through fair dealings and the high quality of Greywood goods. Every aspect of clan life, from daily chores to grand celebrations, bore the subtle, enriching stamp of her unique perspective. Alara was not content to merely manage the present prosperity. Her vision stretched far into the future, a legacy of inclusivity and progress for generations yet to come. She understood that true stability lay in adapting, in allowing the clan to evolve without losing its ancient roots. To this end, she began to establish new traditions and policies, carefully weaving them into the existing cultural fabric. One of her first initiatives was the creation of the Council of Voices, a formal assembly that brought together not just the elders, but representatives from every segment of the clan: hunters, gatherers, artisans, and even the hearth guardians, the women and men who managed the daily life of the community. This ensured that every perspective was considered in major decisions, fostering a deeper sense of ownership and collective responsibility. She also established dedicated learning groves, places where knowledge, both ancient and newly discovered, was shared freely, breaking down the traditional barriers between different skill sets. Here, elders taught traditional lore, while younger members introduced new methods of building or farming learned from trade with other clans. Education became a cornerstone of her reign. She insisted that all children, regardless of their family's standing, be taught basic literacy, a skill previously reserved only for scribes and leaders. This, she believed, was the true path to progress, empowering her people with the tools to understand their world and shape their future. Alara also implemented a system of communal resource sharing for those in need, ensuring that sickness or unexpected hardship did not lead to destitution, creating a safety net previously unknown. Her laws were characterized by fairness and restorative justice, focusing on healing breaches within the community rather than simply punishing transgressions. Her cursed name, once a symbol of exclusion, became the very embodiment of inclusivity, a testament to her deep-seated belief that every individual, regardless of their past or perceived flaws, held the potential for greatness and contribution. She ensured that the story of her own journey was taught to the young, not as a tale of suffering, but as an inspiring saga of resilience, of breaking free from the chains of prejudice and fear, and of finding strength in unexpected difference. Within this flourishing kingdom, Alara found a profound personal fulfillment that transcended any dream she might have harbored in her isolated youth. She was no longer defined by a cursed name whispered in fear, but by her actions, her leadership, and the tangible positive impact she had on every life in the Greywood clan. The quiet girl who once moved through shadows now stood bathed in the light of her people's admiration and love, her spirit vibrant and unburdened. The Alpha King, Torvin, remained her steadfast partner, their love a beacon for the entire clan. Their relationship was a living example of the new era Alara championed, one built on mutual respect, unwavering support, and a shared vision. She found joy in the laughter of children playing in the communal gardens, in the satisfied smiles of her people after a successful harvest, and in the quiet moments of shared understanding with Torvin as they walked their prospering lands. Her past pain had been transmuted into unparalleled wisdom, her ostracization into an empathetic connection with all her subjects. The weight of the world she carried now was not a burden, but the honorable responsibility of a queen who was truly beloved, her destiny rewritten not by fate, but by her own indomitable will and compassionate heart. The clan achieved unprecedented peace and prosperity under the joint rule of the Alpha King Torvin and Queen Alara, a testament to their combined strength and unwavering vision. The prophecy of the cursed name, once a source of terror and division, was now fully reinterpreted, understood not as a harbinger of doom but as a profound blessing, a clear sign of the one destined to bring transformative change and unparalleled unity to the Greywood. Schoolchildren learned the true meaning of Alara's name, bright, shining one, and she unites the broken. Reciting it with pride, their young minds free from the shadows of baseless superstition. The elders, humbled by their past mistakes, became the staunchest defenders of the new interpretations, eager to share the wisdom of Lyra's revelations and the lessons learned from their queen's reign. The Greywood lands, once a place of cautious tradition, now thrived with innovation and progress. New trade routes flourished, bringing prosperity and cultural exchange. The borders were secure, defended not just by skilled warriors, but by alliances forged through Alara's diplomacy and the widespread respect she commanded. The Ashfang pack, once a formidable threat, had been driven back permanently, their ferocity broken by Alara's strategic brilliance, leaving the Northern Territories safe for generations to come. The clan's once stagnant legal system had been revitalized, founded on principles of restorative justice and community healing, ensuring harmony and fairness for all. Every member of the Greywood, from the youngest pup to the oldest elder, understood that their current prosperity was intrinsically linked to the queen who had borne the most cursed name, and who had, against all odds, transformed it into their greatest strength. Alara, once a marginalized and feared figure, now stood as a beloved and universally respected queen, her journey a living, breathing testament to indomitable resilience, true leadership, and the transformative power of love to overcome even the most deeply entrenched prejudice. Her quiet strength had reshaped a fractured society, guiding it towards a future where differences were celebrated, and true worth was measured by action, not birthright or ancient whispers. The scars of her past, the years of ostracization and silent suffering, had not embittered her but had instead deepened her empathy, making her a ruler who understood the plight of every common villager. She walked among her people not as a distant monarch, but as a guiding light, her presence inspiring hope and fostering a sense of belonging. The love between her and the Alpha King Torvin, a love that had defied centuries of fear and tradition, blossomed into a legend, woven into the very fabric of Greywood lore. Their story was sung by bards around crackling hearths, passed down from parent to child, a tale of devotion, partnership, and a bond that transcended all earthly challenges. It was a love that proved that even the most formidable Alpha King could find his truest equal in a queen whose strength lay in her compassion and unwavering spirit. They ruled together, two halves of a powerful whole, their unity a symbol of the Greywoods' enduring peace. Their legacy was not just one of prosperity and peace, but of a profound shift in mindset, a permanent reevaluation of what constituted true leadership and worth. The cursed name of Alara had become synonymous with destiny, courage, and the unwavering belief that potential resides everywhere, often in the most unexpected places. The Greywood clan, under their reign, became a beacon of enlightened governance, a testament to the idea that a society willing to challenge its deepest fears could achieve greatness beyond imagination. Alara, the girl who was once a ghost, now lived as a vibrant, beloved queen, her laughter echoing through the halls of a prosperous kingdom, her presence a constant reminder that the greatest blessings often emerge from the greatest challenges. Don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to our channel for more epic tales of love and destiny. What other forbidden romances would you like us to explore in our next video?